Good day, Ma'am Anna. My name is Jonnel S. Gadingan from BSED Social Studies 2. So today my topic is all about the principles, policies, and dimensions of special and inclusive education. Objectives. At the end of the activity, the pre-service teacher shall thresh out highlights and applicability of principles, policies, and dimensions of special and inclusive education in the Philippines. Second is research on status of implementation of principles, policies, and dimensions of special and inclusive education in the Philippine setting. So these are the 5 principles, policies, and dimensions. Number 1 is early intervention. Number 2 is process of inclusion, Philippine model. Number 3, transition program. Number 4, sustaining programs. Number 5, national IEP education policy. So let's go first to early intervention. The highlights of early interventions are inclusive education for children and youth with special needs, or the Senate Bill number 1414. Section 21 states that public information, education, and communication, a nationwide information dissemination campaign on prevention, early identification, and the strategic intervention programs for CYSNS shall be intensified. So this shall be the joint responsibility of the Philippine Information Agency, or PIA, Council for the Welfare of Children, or CWC, the NCDA, and the DepEd, in collaboration with the DOH, DOLE, and LGUs, shall disseminate materials and information concerning effective practices in working with training and education of CYSNs. So its applicability to special education and inclusive education in the Philippines are the University of the Philippines General Hospital, Department of Rehabilitation Medicine, and Rotary Club has put up a hospital-based preschool building where appropriate educational intervention is provided by a teacher from the Division of City Schools, Manila. Status of implementation, or research-based. Section 22 states that implementation rules and regulation within 60 days from the effectivity of this act. The DepEd, BSWD, DILG, local government, DOH, Department of Finance, BIR, the CWC, the ECCD Council, the NCDA, and other relevant government agencies. Second is process of inclusion, Philippine model. The highlights of process of inclusion, or Philippine model, are capitalizing on the benefits of clusters, networks, and families of schools, adopting a local solution approach, stimulating co-construction between schools, expanding the concept of system leadership. Status of implementation, research-based. Senate Bill number 1414 states that inclusive education for children and youth with special needs. One positive development in special education is the implementation of PA 7277, known as Magna Carta for Disabled Persons, an act providing for the rehabilitation, self-development, and self-reliance of disabled persons and their integration in the mainstream society. In support of this legislation, DepEd has directed all schools divisions in the country to establish special education centers to help provide effective delivery of special education service nationwide. Number 2 is to help enhance participation rate among children with special needs. Inclusive education has become the main thrust in the education of children with special needs in the Philippines. This is implemented through the organization of SPED centers as resource center in special needs education. At present, there are already 133 SPED centers throughout the country. Third is transition program. The highlight of transition program is designed for special learners that are intellectually disabled and those that are physically handicapped. It is designed to meet their special needs and respond to their specific interests. It is like a care package that will empower the learners in their transition from home to school, or from post-elementary or post-secondary to the world of work. Second is, the transition program in the Philippines could be expanded to many different possible points of the entry. That would extend the scope of transition program from young children to adults. This may include the following samples. Number 1 is transition to school life. Number 2, transition after post-secondary schooling. Number 3, transition from school to entrepreneurship. Number 4, transition from school to adult life. And 5, transition to functional life. Its applicability to special education and inclusive education in the Philippines. So the proposed curriculum framework of the transition program for the Department of Education as a result of a consultative workshop with different special education teachers, school heads, and supervisors from different parts of the Philippines. Based on the framework, the transition program is composed of 5 learning areas that the students may choose from, namely academic curriculum, pre-vocational curriculum, livelihood school, enrichment curriculum, and care curriculum. All these learning areas are designed to help and prepare Filipino learners with special education needs to be capable of engaging in entrepreneurship, pursuing further studies, or living functional lives. Status of implementation, research-based. Finding from the study revealed that at the beginning of the internships, both of the students have to overcome several challenges working in their respective workplaces. The students were having problem in adjusting to their new work environment, interacting with coworkers, understanding instructions, and also displaying negative attitudes. Fortunately, with the assistance from special education teachers, supervisors, and coworkers, both special needs students have proven that they were able to gain valuable work experience at the end of their transition program. Fourth is sustaining program. The highlight of sustaining program is the fund allocation for SPED centers. A is pupil development activities, training, educational visits, camp activities, sports, and pupil participation in SPED-related activities is equal to 30%. B, procurement of assistive technology devices like Perkins Braille, Braille display, speech synthesizer, canes, magnifiers, writing slates, stylus, abacus, job access with speech program or JAWS, computers, sports, musical instruments, speech trainer, vestibular balls, sensory integration materials, early stimulation devices, adapted PE, apparatuses, sewing machines, stove, cooking wares, and carpentry tools for the work centers or transition program, etc. is equal to 25%. Letter C, procurement of instructional and reference materials, psychological test, early intervention materials, science manipulative materials is equal to 25%. Letter D is professional upgrading of teachers and school heads and travel expenses relative to participation or attendance to activities relevant to the implementation of the program, training of classroom parents' aides, ailment of services of allied personnel, namely psychologists, occupational, physical, speech, behavioral therapies is equal to 20%. In total of 100%. Its applicability to special education and inclusive education in the Philippines. The LCD Philippines Foundation Inclusive Education Program was initiated in 2005 in response to a perceived need for a pre-modification of the current educational system for CWDS in the Philippines. Working in partnership with the Department of Education and other national NGOs and 19 community support groups, or made up of volunteer parents and volunteers, amongst the partners, the program involves creating awareness among stakeholders, improving access to inclusive education in schools and communities through providing accessible features, equipment, and appropriate teacher training, adopting an holistic approach to address the needs of CWDs, through comprehensive health management and rehabilitation interventions, including a program developed by one of our CHIIPS interns or iCare, and research and data gathering. In addition, the Inclusive Education in collaboration with the Economic Empowerment Program aims to create economic opportunities for the parents and families of disabled children. Status of implementation, research-based. The Department of Education or DepEd, Bureau of Elementary Education or BEE, through the Special Education Division or SPED, continuously supports the delivery of quality educational services to children with special needs. Now, on its third year of providing financial subsidy, this school year, 2011-2012, the 276 recognized SPED centers will be given support funds with an aggregate amount of 115 million pesos. An amount of proportionate to the enrollment and exceptionalities being served by the SPED centers shall be provided. The subsidy shall be released directly to the recipient schools with fiscal autonomy or through the school's division offices for those schools without fiscal autonomy pursuant to the provision of the DepEd Department of Budget and Management or DBM. Joint Circular Number 2004 or one entitled The Guidelines on the Direct Release of Funds to Regional Offices and Implementing Units. The subsidy granted for or per SPED centers shall be utilized to support the implementation of the following activities of the SPED program as reflected in Approved School Improvement Plan or SIP. Last is National IEP Education Policy. The highlight of National IEP Education Policy is the IEP is the cornerstone of a quality education of each child with disability. Students part of the inclusion program is given an IEP aligned to the general curriculum, to the general education curriculum, and focuses on the following. Number 1 is cognitive skills like reading, writing, math, language, science, Filipino, and behavior. Number 3 is socialization skills, psychomotor skills or fine motor and gross motor. Number 5 is language and communication. Last is self-help skill. Its applicability to special education and inclusive education in the Philippines. There are 2 laws for K-12 students in public schools that may offer supports and services for a child with ADHD. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act or the IDA and Section 504 of Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Either one provides an individualized education plan or IEP. Status of implementation, research-based. In February 2007, 4 administrators from Baltimore City Public School System or BCPSS came to the Philippines to recruit teachers for their school district. The recruitment team was able to tour the different schools' facilities in Cebu and saw schools that were model sites, as well as schools in need. A year later, the first fundraiser was held at a local Filipino restaurant. With the help of the Baltimore teachers and others in the community, they were able to raise $8,000 to purchase a yellow minibus for the school in Cebu to allow the school to mobilize the children. This was how the Suporta sa Eskwela program was born. By 2010, the small group of 4 BSPSS administrators had grown a dozen plus volunteers who agreed to expand their giving. They began developing criteria to nominate and select a school with a rich educational program but is in need to be their beneficiary. That's all. Thank you.